live now.
We are now, yeah. Didn't get the nice intros there. Anyway, welcome to the latest episode of Talking Ball. I'm Joe Neighbour, joined by Steve O'Hare and Jamie Packard-Walsh. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, mate. Morning.
Good morning.
Everything all right?
Yeah. A few little bugs in the system, is there?
A few little bugs in the system. Yeah. Were you referring to Crystal Palace there, or?
Oh, mate. Don't
Yeah.
tell me about it.
Ugh.
Awful, wasn't it? Awful.
Yeah,
Yeah, tough
absolutely
time.
horrific. Anyway, let's forget about that. Let's move on to more interesting things. The markets, what's going on? What's the latest headline? So, continues to be strong pressure for additional Ukraine sanctions. The military developments in Ukraine continue to indicate a withdrawal of Russian forces from the northern areas, with an attempt to refocus on the south and east in an attempt to gain control of the Donbass. The withdrawal of forces, however, has increased the focus on allegations of war crimes against civilians around the Kyiv area. Pressure for additional sanctions on Russia has increased, with further demands that European countries stop importing Russian gas. In terms of what's going on in the inflation scene, given the developments that are happening in Ukraine and the supply pressures on commodities, fears over higher inflation also continue to increase, especially with fears over the impact of the lockdown in Shanghai. Difficulties for global central banks will therefore also tend to intensify. Overnight or this morning, we had a hawkish shift from the Reserve Bank of Australia. They held interest rates at 0.1%, which was in line with expectations. However, there was a hawkish shift in sentiment of this statement, with comments that inflation has picked up and further increase is expected. The bank also noted that the labour market is tight and wage growth is likely to accelerate. So we've seen quite a substantial jump in anything linked to the Australian dollar, which we'll come onto shortly on the charts. We had some dovish rhetoric from the Bank of England's Cunliffe. In comments yesterday, the Deputy Governor stated that the Ukraine crisis will intensify and prolong the surge in inflation and tighten the squeeze on household incomes. He added that companies do not have the same bargaining power as in the 1970s, and he was not convinced that there was any need to lean heavily and constantly against an embedding of an inflationary mindset. We've also had a mild warning from the Bank of Japan Governor Kuroda. That stated that recent forex moves have been somewhat rapid and hinted there could be intervention to slow the decline. This was following on from the comments that we saw last week, and we mentioned that 130 level on dollar yen was the interesting level to watch, where they may step in. Not anywhere near that at the minute, but worthwhile noting that number. So let's get stuck into some charts then and have a look at markets from a technical perspective. Steve, what's catching your eye this morning on the charts?
I suppose I'm going to dive into NASDAQ and just take a look at things we picked up on yesterday. There was a potential for a bit of a turnaround in the markets. We saw that this last week's shooting star candle, and we were really, I was really focusing on the potential for an evening star formation. This hasn't happened. We've seen a really good rally and over the last sort of 24, 48 hours, and we're approaching decent resistance now at 15,265, that sort of area. Now, on the hourly chart, we can see that this was a potential. I faded this yesterday. This was a potential inverse head and shoulders. So the sort of this happened at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and played out really nicely as an inverse head and shoulders, and that's hit the measured move target as well. Again, we're seeing the prices kick on in the last hour, so looking quite positive on the Nasdaq. Yeah, resistance, as I say, 15,265, which is only about 80 points higher. A similar type of formation that we saw on the daily chart on DAX, and we saw prices come back and retest the neckline now. So we've seen 3 positive days, although the sort of ranges are quite small. This is quite a constructive pattern, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this also lift. And we can see in the last hour, especially, we've engulfed this previous hour's candle, and it's engulfed all of the sort of like the work that was done yesterday as well. So we've taken out that high, looking really bullish outside candle on the 1 hour chart. Really nice start to the morning. We've only got 10 minutes to go before that candle finishes, so that looks like it's going to hold up quite nicely. The other markets obviously impacted by what's going on in the world quite dramatically is the oil market. As Joe was saying by the headlines, there's a lot going on that has to be taken into account. And this looks like quite a technical bottoming formation also. So maybe potential for a head and shoulders that could play out. That's on the hourly chart. So maybe play out in a couple of days. If we go to the daily chart, we've seen this bullish engulfing candle after price action from Friday really gave up a lot of gains. And there was hopes that the Russia-Ukraine situation could maybe come to some sort of solution. That's not the case now, and there's a lot more going on in the oil markets that we have to take into account. So that bullish engulfing candle has been followed with more positive price action this morning. On the 4-hour chart, we can see that these are the news sentiment candles. And I'll have a little look at news sentiment while the guys are talking about their markets and see if there's anything showing on that side of things. Because when we have had news sentiment turning positive, and the technical picture was also combined with that, we've seen some good rallies. The only time we haven't out of the last 4, we've seen it fail once. It had a small rally, then came off, but I think the percentage on that was quite low. So I'll have a look at that while, and that could be part of my gun to head trade idea. Finally, gold. Gold still seems to really not know where to go. We've got this head and shoulders potential. It hasn't really. We try to break this neckline and failed to hold below it. So until we break the right shoulder, which is up around about 1965, I remain bearish on gold and expect further downside. Again, Russia-Ukraine has got a lot to do with that. So we'll have to wait and see. That's about it on my side.
Okay, lovely. Cheers, Steve. Let's take a look at FX then. So diving straight into dollar index on the daily chart, that continues to look very bullish overall, trading within this bullish channel. We saw further gains yesterday as prices continue to move higher. We're getting a bit of stalling today, but still trapped within this kind of consolidation pattern as things stand. If you look at my watch list on the right hand side, then we've got these Aussie currencies at the top of the list, and there's some substantial moves that we've seen in those markets as a result of the more hawkish Australian central bank yesterday. Take a look at Aussie CAD ripping through resistance here, double level of resistance really, 94.45 to 94.67. Really strong move to the upside, taking out that previous swing high there from the 7th of March and looking really strong. If we take a look at Aussie Swiss, we're making almost new highs, challenging this previous high from the 28th of March, and you wouldn't back against it given how strong that move high has been. If we take a look at Aussie Yen, not quite at the highs that we posted again on the 28th of March, but looking set to continue higher. A small bit of consolidation here and now ripping again to the upside. Aussie dollar, really strong move, taking out this big level of resistance at 75.55. Although the dollar still looks really strong overall, the Aussie is outperforming it quite significantly at the moment. So really big push to the upside. It looks as though we've completed some sort of large bottom pattern here. We did have a double bottom here that had a measured move target of 76.57. So this is the first bottom here, second bottom here, the breakout here, and then we are almost at that measured move. So looking really strong there, and no signs, it's certainly in the short term, of that slowing down. On the coattails of this, we are seeing a decent move in some of the New Zealand dollar currencies as well. Obviously not matching quite what we're seeing with the Aussie, but all in all looking pretty strong. None more so than this really. This is the New Zealand dollar versus the US dollar on a daily chart, broken out of a nice inverse head and shoulders bottom pattern there, and looking as though it's trying to make fresh highs here. So looks pretty good. Measured move target of this inverse head and shoulders is up here at 73.21. So looking very strong indeed. These commodity linked currencies. And obviously, while this situation with Ukraine continues, and it's going to continue to put pressure on commodity prices, we are going to continue to see more pressure on these currencies for now. That's it from me on the FX side of things. Jamie, what's cracking in the stock world?
Thank you, Joe. Nothing too crazy taking my eye today. But we will dive into a couple that have stood out slightly. We've looked at NEO a couple times recently. For its kind of continuation head and shoulders. We've had this. We've had this like inverse head and shoulders that we identified a couple of days ago, I think, and you can see we kind of had this break above this resistance level here. It's not a particularly strong candle. We did get it gapping up, which is positive, and it did close around the highs. So we'll see if we get any follow through from that. But that's certainly for people that are kind of holding NEO and bullish on NEO. That's the kind of price action we like to see, kind of breaking those previous swing highs. So that's positive for NEO. We'll jump over to Palantir. We've got a similar kind of thing, where we had this previous resistance level at about $14, just between $14 and $14.20. And this is a bit of a stronger candle for me. Again, we had a slight gap up off the open, and I'm not going to say the Marubozu candle again. I'm gonna miss that. But it's a very positive candle. It was closed at the day's high as well, which is, again, similar to NEO. It's good price action, and that's what you want to see if you're bullish on Palantir. Quickly jump over to Rolls-Royce, one I've highlighted. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one because I zoomed back into a weekly time frame, and I saw that there is the potential here, and obviously it won't be confirmed until we get back to neckline, but for a really long-term head and shoulders type pattern. We've got the left shoulder here, we've got the head here, and price action is now kind of starting to stall. We had this doji type candle last week, but if we then got a retest of this green area I've highlighted here at around 87, and we got a break of that level, we could potentially see quite a large move to the downside, at least on a technical basis. Obviously, Rolls-Royce has had a bit of a fall from grace the last 5 or so years. I mean, from highs of about 440, it's now down below 100. So we'll see how that plays out, but obviously nothing confirmed until we do get a break of that support level. The last stock, I've highlighted Boohoo, so we're going to have to see why. Oh yeah, similar kind of thing. I just love a head and shoulders. We've got this inverse kind of head and shoulders forming here. Got the left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And again, these are, I go over the same kind of patterns because they're the ones that for me I really like to look at to signify a potential change of trend. If we were to get kind of a break above this resistance level here with some good volume, we could kind of be looking to target potential higher levels on Boohoo, and we can kind of measure that out. We take the distance from the top of the head to the neckline, you extrapolate that above, and it kind of coincides with a nice gap fill here. So that could be a nice potential target for anyone bullish on Boohoo. But yeah, I think that's it from me on stocks today.
Yeah, some really nice looking patterns there, Jamie. Let's see if they can break out and hold. Okay, so let's take a look at the gun to the head challenge that we participate in each day. So it's our job to pick a call live on the video of a market that we believe could make some money between now and the close of business. We must each place a stop and a target on these trade ideas, ideally with a risk reward ratio of in excess of 2 to 1. All the ideas are placed at market, and the ideas will expire at 9 p.m. or when the stop or the target is hit. Just a quick recap on yesterday and our spreadsheet of trades. It wasn't a particularly great day for Steve and myself, who were trying to sell indices. I was short of the S&P 500 and Steve was short of NASDAQ, both of which reversed to the upside yesterday, as Steve mentioned on his charts earlier. But Jamie, you also had a look at indices and you went the opposite way to us, thankfully, and managed to bag yourself a 0.43R winner on the session. So well done to you.
Well done,
It's
Jamie.
only a small one, but I'll take it.
Yeah, they all count, mate. So it's your honour, Jamie, based on the fact that you were the only one that had a winner yesterday. Have you got anything ready?
Yeah, I do. So I'm going to be taking a look at pound yen here. And similarly, with these gun to heads, I really prefer to go for the patterns that have just broken out of a resistance or a support level. And you can see we had this resistance here at 161, kind of 161.15. We've had this strong looking breakout candle here, which is closed above the previous resistance. So I'm probably going to look for a continuation of this move higher. So I'll try buying. What's it at now? 161.28. Let's just type these in. Yeah, 161.28. With a profit level at 162.55 and a stop at 160.89 for a 3.26 risk reward ratio.
Nice one.
Steve, you got one ready?
I've got one ready if you want to do me.
Go on then.
Yeah, I'm going to look at oil. I mentioned I was going to check out the sentiment data. Let me just pop this out. So let me jump onto oil. WTI crude oil. We can see that new sentiment has been quite positive as price has moved lower. However, on the 3rd of April, we got this market alert saying that, so this was 2 days ago, daily news sentiment is moving higher, and in 70% of the last 10 occurrences, price has risen within 5 days, 70% confidence factor. So for me, that's pretty good. And new sentiment remains elevated. Over the last 24 hours also, that has increased to the positive side of things. We are still pretty negative overall on the new sentiment. It's like minus 0.3. But what we tend to find is when we're getting these higher new sentiment readings, they're working pretty well overall. 2 that didn't work on the downside, and 3 or 4 that did. So for me, that gives me a little bit more confidence going into this trade idea. We've seen some high volume. We've seen a bit of selling in the last hour, which isn't ideal. Sorry, let me just. So I'm going to get long here at 103.17. I'm going to have a dollar stop, and I'm going to have a $4 take profit, which would see us get up towards these resistance levels once this breaks. So a nice little bottoming formation, looking for a break higher. Stop is quite tight. $1's not a lot in the ranges we're seeing at the moment in oil.
Okay, good luck, Steve.
Joe, what you got?
Like Jamie, I like the yen setups really. This is euro yen, so this is a daily chart. We can see that really strong move to the upside, which stalled and has since pulled back to test the newly formed support on this blue line at 134.12. When I zoom into the intraday chart, so looking at it from an hourly perspective, we can see this was the move higher, which was contained nicely within a bullish channel, but we've since seen a bit of consolidation take place over recent trading sessions. But we seem to have found some support. Nice little lift off from this level at 134.35. So I'm going to buy it now at a price of 134.98. Stop loss at 134.25. So just below the lows that we've seen overnight. And I'm going to target a move into the highs of these candles here at 137.00, a nice round number to target, which gives me 2.8R on that one today.
Very nice, I like that.
That'll do nicely. Okay, so data-wise today, just to keep our wits about us in terms of what's happening and be aware of the volatility events throughout the trading session. At 3 o'clock UK time, we have the US ISM Services Index number. And then 5 minutes after that, we have a speech from one of the Fed governors, Brainard, and we may get some indication as to what to expect on the minutes that are due out tomorrow after market close in Europe. So maybe setting ourselves up for what to expect tomorrow data-wise. So yeah, keep an eye out for those if you have any exposure to the particularly US dollar or the US indices later on this afternoon. Anything else, gents?
No, all good here.
Yeah,
excellent.
all good.
Perfect. Well, let's wrap it up there then, and we will be back tomorrow morning.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Have a
Thanks,
good day,
guys.
everyone. Bye.